On today's Transport Evolved, BMW says no, Carlos Ghosn says yes, and 98% of Tesla owners would do it again. These stories and more coming up next on Transport Evolved. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 221 of Transport Evolved, recorded on Sunday, December 7th, 2014. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield, and I'm your usual host into the world of future car technology. If it's cleaner, greener, safer, or smarter, we cover it. And that, of course, does include everything from plug-in vehicles through to the dirty word around here, which is hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. We'll come to that later on, I'm sure. And all kinds of other smart future tech. I don't think we have any self-driving stories today, but we did have some during the week over on the Transport Evolved website. So if you're interested in self-driving technology, do read that up. And we've got two fantastic guests coming back, joining us back on the show for the first time, I think, in about 9 weeks for one of them and 6 weeks for another. So please welcome back to the show from California, Mr. Scott Cronce of Playing Games and Ukuleles. That's what I'm going to introduce you as today, Scott. How are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
I'm very good. Well, it's evening here for me, actually.
That's true.
I've got a wonderful smell of baking bread coming through from the other room. We've been baking bread all day today and doing lots of house-selly things. Not in the baking bread and the house-selling don't necessarily go together, but it does mean that the kids have fresh bread tomorrow, which they'll appreciate. So you've been busy on the West Coast, and we'll come and talk about that a little bit more later. You've got a picture-in-picture, which is very interesting. I'm not sure why you have a picture-in-picture, but we'll come to that later on. Okay. Also joining us today from the East Coast of the US, Seth Weintraub from 9to5 Mac and also Electric. How are you, Seth?
Good afternoon, Nikki.
How are you? I'm good. So, Apple Watch, are you going to get one?
I have to.
Is that kind of like I have to buy one?
No, it's even if I didn't want one, I will get one.
You will get one.
I do want one. So,
can I share a sad story with you?
Of course.
Okay, I'm just reaching behind the camera for it. This is what happens. Oh, that's a Samsung? No,
this is the Moto.
That's the Moto. Okay, so this is my Pebble. As Scott knows, I'm a Pebble fan. And I tend, ever since I was little, I had trouble, with wearing things around my wrists all the time. So what I tend to do is I tend to take them off when I'm driving my car and put them in the center console. And my wife was driving back the other day. I was with her and it was in the center console. She got out and it pulled out onto the road from our Nissan Leaf. And then later on in the day, our Chevy Volt ran over it. I don't know if anyone can see this, but it's black now. It still works, though. It vibrates. I just can't tell what's on the screen. But the illusion here is that, yes, I'll probably be getting an Apple Watch as well. I am sad. So that's my excuse. All right. So we've had a really interesting couple of weeks. Scott, you've been busy at EA, as always, and you've got a growing number of electric car owners and plug-in drivers at EA Games. Tell us about them.
We do. We've right now it's hovering around 70. So
wow.
I think that's
incredible.
Maybe 15 more since I was on back in September.
Wow. So we have, there's been lots of things going on, haven't there? This is the a Mercedes-Benz B-Class electric drive parked at the EA lot. Ooh, a couple of months back now, isn't it?
Ooh. We got some noise.
Yeah, we have. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know where that's coming from. Let me see if I can figure out who's making that horrible noise. I think that will be... well, that will be... let me see. That's you, Seth. I don't know what's going on with your noise, but Seth's making horrible noise. Scott, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
fantastic. I can. Let me see if I can... Oh, nope, he's still making the noise. So what we'll do is you can tell us about this. I'm going to call back Seth, and we'll see if we can get a cleaner signal. So tell us about your parking lots.
Let's see. I think that's the public lot. Well, in front of one of our buildings, I think it started in 2008 is when we had our first public spot that had an Avcon, if you remember that, and the Toyota small paddle inductive.
Right. Right.
Then right around, I think it was in 2011 is when we ended up putting in another 5 of the J1772. So I think this photo might be last year. It was a good 6-8 months before they even announced the B class.
Right.
And I think they drove it up from one of the Silicon Valley test locations that they had.
Right. And it's quite a nice car, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And we've also got this wonderful thing that you do, which is something that you have in your car park for all EV owners. It's the Electronic Arts Be a Nice Person thing.
Yes. That kind of one of our graphic artists, Dino, put that together because it was kind of what we were saying to everybody over email and said, let's just make a nice little handout to give to people.
Excellent.
And we have about 30 places where you can charge. 14 of them are standard 120 spots for the plug-in plug-in hybrids. 14 level 2 and 2 Teslas. So with 30 spots and 70 cars, that first one of please move your car when you're finished charging is the most important one.
Yeah. And Seth, I don't know if you've ever encountered this at any of the places you've worked at before with charging etiquette and not enough charging spaces to go around.
Well, so I haven't worked not from home in about 5 years, so not really. But when I do go to places that I try to get a charge at, I do see these etiquette issues becoming important.
Yeah. Yeah.
We parked at a convention center that had one EV spot, and there was a Volt in it that was completely charged. And the security guard said, "Well, you can pull up beside them, and but you're going to be blocking them. But you can use the charger because theirs was finished." And obviously the person who came back and was blocked in was a little bit upset. But I gave the security guard my number, and I was there within 5 minutes, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
We have a problem here now with people camping out a little bit. I think I've started to notice that. And one of the things that I've noticed a little bit more as a Leaf driver is that we very often have people with Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrids sat charging a car that doesn't have to plug in, and they're sat at rapid charging, and you've got a 20-minute, you've got an appointment in 20 minutes that you have to leave for, and that can sometimes grate a little bit. And I'm trying to be a nice person about it, but it is starting to grate a little bit. Now, Scott, the reason why we brought up obviously E8 is that we always check with you how things are doing there, because I think you've probably got one of the largest EV fleets, private grey fleet ownership of anywhere in Silicon Valley. But also because there was a study this week that came out from the Department of Energy, from the EV Everywhere program, that said that workers who get to charge at work, so employees who actually provide charging to their employers who provide charging to their employees, are more likely to own or have EVs in their office car park. So is that true?
I think it is true. I think it is true. It's they did a 20x number on it, and I don't know how scientific that is, but the number of people that have gotten a EV at EA in the last year is just exploding. And a lot of that is that we do continue to add more spots, and now they know that no matter how far away they are, they can make it in a pure EV. Even I'd say about a third of our cars are plug-in hybrids,
Right.
but most of them are pure EVs.
Now, you sent me an email this week and you mentioned that in California things are different than they are elsewhere in the world.
Yeah, we're special.
You have a really long commute. I mean, Seth, you're in New York City, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming you don't have to drive to commute to work in the morning.
Well, I mean, I can see my house. It's like, it's a yard away. I'm in a cottage outside of my house, so.
Right. So you don't have far to commute at all then. In that case,
I guess if it got really cold, I could drive.
Yeah, just gonna drive down the yard. But I know over here in the UK, obviously people do tend to commute quite a lot as well. And I mean, maybe it's the company I keep, but I know people who very often do 1 hour commutes, 2 hour commutes if they have to. But Scott, I mean, you were saying obviously this 20 times multiplier works in somewhere like Silicon Valley where people really do need to have a top up during the day, but most people don't. But I'm going to put a bit of a devil's advocate spin on this and say, with my journalist hat on, isn't it just that the kind of places that put charging stations in are the Googles and the EAs and the Apples and the Microsofts of the world, whose staff are going to be predisposed to plug-in ownership?
That could be. I would say that was true, except if we look at if I look down the list, I'd say only about half the drivers are from our engineering development side. The other half are from our other parts of our business.
Right.
So it may be true, but it isn't a purely an engineering thing.
Okay, I'll buy that. I was going to be all kind of but no. Your argument is sound. All right, Seth, we're going to move on and we're going to talk to a piece of news you talked about a few weeks back, where the Tesla Model X is going to be capable of towing. Now, I can't remember. Are you on the Model X list?
No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
I might be. I just want to see it first, obviously.
Okay, so you've got a Model S at the moment.
Right.
Do you see though that people are going to be towing with a luxury SUV like this? Are the kind of people who are buying the Model X not going to have another car in the garage that they can tow with, like an Audi A7, a Q7, for example?
I think towing's probably going to be pretty common. With the Falcon Wing doors, I don't know how much of the roof space is going to be available. So like you can't really throw kayaks up there,
right?
Or if you're going to do something like that. So why not? Like it should be something that a crossover and SUV can do. Frankly, I think the Model S could probably tow. It's got crazy torque, and it doesn't seem like when I go up a huge hill, it doesn't seem to phase it at all. So, I'm sure there's some things to consider, but the physics is sound. There should be no problem with towing. Obviously, the range is going to go down. I don't know how considerably. I guess it obviously depends on what you're towing, but there's no physics blockade in having an electric car that has good towing capacity. And knowing Elon Musk, it'll probably be able to tow a battleship because why not?
It's funny you should say that, because I've got a story, and people who have been around in the plug-in world will know this gentleman. He's been driving EVs for a while. I hope he doesn't mind me name checking him. His name's Brian Murtha. He was one of the EVA DC chapter that I knew fairly well when I was kind of an honorary member, because we had family in the DC area, and he let me drive his RAV4 EV, and he told me this wonderful story. And we're talking about the original RAV4 EVs here. We're not talking about the current one, or the one that's just ceased production. And he had a Ford Ranger and a RAV4 EV. and he had to go to an event, a drag racing event, in his EVs. And so he had an A-frame set up that he could tow one of the vehicles with the other. And somehow, because he had the Ranger could be towed in neutral and the RAV could be towed without, damaging things. And so he towed one behind the other. And then when the first car's battery packs were depleted, he then switched the cars around, carried on, and was able to tow, obviously not the equivalent of 2 times the range, but he was able to tow both vehicles enough that he was able to top up and carry on. He told me about that, and he now drives a Model S, but it always makes me smile when people talk about towing in electric vehicles, because I remember that story and him telling it to me. I know that a lot of people have Model S tow bars fitted already.
I've seen those.
I said on the fence. I think I want to wait and see what the X is like first. I'm a bit like you, Seth. Maybe it's just the journalist going, let's see, let's wait. Let's see what happens next. Scott, what's your views on that?
I think a lot of people are gonna do that. I can see. So if you look back a few years ago, you would see. Get a little noise there still.
Yep. Your noise is back, Seth.
You'd see so many in Silicon Valley with a Porsche convertible and a Porsche SUV that they would use for towing. So nowadays I'm seeing a lot more Teslas than anything else. So I could see they have their Model S and then they're going to have their X for towing.
Yep. I can see that. I can see that working quite well, to be honest. All right. So earlier this week, I was one of the lucky few to go off to this place, which is a Nissan battery processing facility in Sunderland, England. I had to dress up in one of those clean room suits, and I got to actually tour the Nissan battery factory space. We've got some B-roll running in the background here, so you can see it. Really, really interesting experience, and it made me really understand a little bit more about how batteries work and how much battery packs and people like Nissan and Tesla is going to be, obviously, put their technology through so many steps, so many stages to ensure that quality control is kept at all times. And I think sometimes we forget what these little battery packs in electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids are capable of, and how much hard work it is done to make sure that they are reliable and they work. Really, really fascinating. It was like going through a microchip facility or some other, super clean room. Think NASA, think Intel. It was a really, really interesting experience. There's a 3-part series on Transport Evolved. Do read it, because we go through, the process of making a battery from the raw materials to the battery cell to the battery pack that's ready to go in the car. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about here, Seth, is the amount of energy and time that Nissan has spent making this battery facility blows my mind. Tesla is coming along and talking about the Gigafactory, and it's going to be the biggest lithium-ion processing plant in the world. Can we describe to our audience what they can expect of that facility and the processes that go through it?
It's going to be more than all the other battery manufacturers in the world combined in one facility in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess it's really hard to even imagine how big it's going to be. I don't know what percentage needs to be clean room capable, but obviously whatever you saw is going to be infinitely bigger than that. And there's pictures coming out on forums of people who are actually going to Nevada and taking pictures, and it's like more than a mile long, and it's just monumental scale type of facility.
It's interesting that you say you don't know how much the clean room is going to be of that main, how much percentage of it is going to be taken up by the clean room. If it's anything like the Nissan plant, it's going to be from the point of the raw materials coming in until the point that each cell is sealed. Now, obviously, Tesla's battery cells are different because presumably Tesla's going to be carrying on making those little round cylindrical cells, which I think Scott's holding one.
Yeah, one of these.
One of those.
They're standard size for any lithium ion. They went with that because they thought that they'd be able to buy from anybody and just use a commodity component. And so their tech is around taking thousands of these and putting them together.
It is.
And I wonder if they're going
mind-blowing.
to change that as they start making their own batteries.
One of the interesting things about the Nissan Leaf cell pack is that it's quite big. Each cell is sort of that big. It's a fair. I can't really give you a size for those who are listening, but it's several inches across, and it's very thin. Obviously, it's a pouch rather than the cylindrical shape of the kind of the consumer electronics style cell. But it's. I think Tesla will probably stay with the Panasonic style 18. What's the cell called? Scott, remind me. It's the 1890 something.
This one says 18650.
18650. Thank you.
3.7 volts at 3400 milliamps, and they come in different milliamp ranges.
And so the way that they produce those, I assume, is going to be different. But the amount of technology, I mean, this is an investment like no other before, and obviously Panasonic's going to be investing a lot of the money on the equipment, isn't it, Seth? That's the agreement. So Panasonic gets paid. Panasonic's going to put all the equipment in and fund all the equipment.
Yeah, they're still using Panasonic's technology. It took a while for Panasonic to come out with a statement publicly, so I think there was a lot of negotiations going on behind the scenes.
Right.
But
right.
They haven't gone to Samsung or LG Chem or any of the other battery players, though. So
and it does also make me wonder how they're going to recycle the batteries there as well, because the kind of contamination control, the air filtration system. One of the things that I was really shocked by, but it makes total sense when you think about it, is that the guys building the Nissan facility, the construction crews, they started off general construction crews, but once the shell of the building was there, the guys who were helping build it had to start adopting clean room procedures. And by the end of it, they were wearing the full bunny suits to keep the clean room clean. That on a scale that we've never seen before in Nevada is just blows my mind. And I suppose I just wanted to drop that in to go, wow, that is insane. All right, finally for the segment. Now, this is did you go to the LA show, either of you, the LA Auto Show?
No, not this year.
No.
I'm going to Detroit.
You're going to Detroit. Good. I'm guessing for the X?
Yep.
Yeah.
and I think they're probably gonna announce something about the Model 3 as well.
Is that your guess?
I think so.
I
think that the chief designer said something to a German magazine about a year ago saying that that was the time period when they were going to announce something. So,
okay, well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for that. I know several other people going to Detroit. Sadly, I'm not. So have fun. But at LA this year, it was all about hydrogen. How did you feel about that, Scott?
Oh, originally I had before I looked into the specs, I was thinking, oh, here we go again. Why are we doing hydrogen? But I think I'm coming around. When I looked at the very few information hard specs you can get, but the Mariah, when I looked at that, they were able to get their battery down to 1.6 kilowatt hours. I went, okay, so now they can get a fuel cell that can pretty much almost completely drive the car. Right. Where in the past, all of these demonstrators, all the ones I've seen, needed to have a 18 to 24 kilowatt battery sitting there to be able to, get it slow charged so that when you're driving and on demand, that you could actually be able to supply enough power. But now it looks like they're getting close to 100 kilowatt hours coming out of the fuel cell pack. So that's starting to make it feasible. It's a lot of things left, but it started to make it feasible.
I didn't think that the Mirai's battery was that small, but I'm going to defer to you on that one.
Yeah. So I I haven't seen it on Toyota's website, but I did see it there on the wiki site that people have made of the specs, and it is nickel metal hydrate, not
Right,
lithium ion, which
so
is
it's the
interesting.
same as the one that's found in the Prius, which would explain that would.
Y- the same, not in the new Priuses. No, they've gone to lithium, but the same one that's in the Camry.
Right, right. So the Audi A7 Sportback Quattro, sorry, the Audi A7 Sportback H-Tron Quattro was debuted at the LA Auto Show. I was kind of raving about it last week because it was a plug-in hybrid hydrogen vehicle. And so you had a regular plug-in hybrid drivetrain, and instead of a gasoline range extended engine, you had a hydrogen fuel cell providing range extension. Now, the interesting thing about this is that I assumed that this was just to give it flexibility. But it turns out, said Volkswagen this week, that in order to make it a proper Audi, they had to give it more power because it wasn't powerful enough. Seth, I don't know if you've driven any hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, but this sounds like an apology.
I'm not sure. For me, it doesn't seem like the energy density of hydrogen is going to come back to is going to surpass gasoline, and as battery, I think lithium battery technology is gaining kind of on traditional fuel vehicles at a rate that it doesn't seem like hydrogen is going to catch up. So for me, I mean, I haven't seen anything that kind of convinced me. I heard somebody say that I thought it was pretty smart, that hydrogen would be a good solution if we were running out of petroleum and didn't need to really worry about carbon. But it's not necessarily a solution to, because you still have to have this fuel, and you still have to go around. I know hydrogen's obviously a lot cleaner, and it can be produced anywhere as long as you have some energy. But it just doesn't answer the right questions.
No, I can see where you're coming from on that one, and I'm still very much on the fence about hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, because I think if someone comes along with a really super green way of making it, and you can reduce the rare earth metals that you need in the fuel cell stack, there are a few applications where I could see it working better than batteries, but it really is kind of those applications where for some reason you need something that conventional batteries can't supply, and at the moment the energy level, the amount of energy that goes into making the fuel, to making the fuel cell stack, etc., far exceeds anything that you need for batteries.
I mean, the one advantage it does have is that you can fill up really quickly, like gas. But I mean, what's going on in the battery? You have the failed Better Place model where you swap batteries, but also you have superchargers that JB Straubel, the CTO of Tesla, has already said that we've only come like a third of the way of where they expect to go. So they expect to be able to fill up a full battery in 5 minutes at some point in the future, not too far in the future. So, once you can do that, then there's fewer and fewer places where hydrogen makes sense.
Yeah. On a side note, I'm really looking forward to trying out the supercharger. I've got a Model S next weekend, and I'm like,
oh wow,
I've got the 60 kilowatt hour. I've had an 85 twice before, but never with a supercharger locally for me to try out. But there are now enough superchargers in the UK that I'm going to try them out. But it does beg the question: do we ever think we're going to see a hydrogen version of a Tesla? And I don't mean Tesla making a hydrogen car. I mean someone doing what Tesla's done for battery electric vehicles in the hydrogen world. So some startup company with some very, very larger than life driven CEO who's willing to take some considerable risks in order to get a very, very fast supercar or high performance sports car out on the market and then use that to drive the hydrogen fuel cell market in the same way that Tesla's done with electrics?
I personally don't believe it'll be a small company. I think Toyota's probably going to make the biggest run of it. And I don't know how far they'll go, but doesn't seem like it's going to be. I mean, it's just from a science and physics perspective, it doesn't seem like it can go where we want stuff to go. So, but I'm not a battery scientist. So.
Okay, Scott, do you have anything to add before we go to our break?
I agree with Seth. I think Toyota right now is primarily been pushing this. They're at about 20 years now, and a lot of it is fueled entirely by their domestic Japanese push for hydrogen. Now that they're trying to move away from nuclear energy, they're trying to figure out what that next thing is, and gasoline would be really bad for them because they don't make any. And hydrogen is a huge push. So they have a hydrogen highway, like the electric highway out west here, that they're putting in place right now. So there's a lot of government backing to try to get to something.
Yeah, indeed.
And they don't, and Toyota does not make batteries, so I don't think they have any interest in battery cars at all.
No. It's so sad. That just makes me depressed when I think about it. All right. At this point in the show, we would normally have an ad break. So, and for the last couple of months, we would have a point here where we talk about either our shop or we talk about how you could donate to support Transport Evolved. However, we've had to cancel our subscription service, and I wanted just to explain it in a live show to those who have either not heard or those who were supporting us and then wondered why we cancelled their subscriptions. This is due to something called VATMOS, VATMOSS. If you live in the EU, specifically if you live in the UK, you may have heard a little bit about this lately. It's a new legal system. It's a new way for collecting taxes on purchases made within the EU, the European Union. This is Petition Service. It's essentially be able to see that becoming, a sensible way of having a form of transport. But I can also...
He's kind of covering his bases more than announcing some impacts.
Or by buying something from our shop, you'll be sending us a little kickback as a thanks for our hard work on the show. And you'll get something unique and fun, and we'll get some warm, fuzzy feelings knowing we can continue to bring you a great show every week. What's not to love? And we're back, and we're streaming in the ad to the guy with YouTube. Now it's streaming. And do we think that we're going to see a future where it will be a good time to buy a first generation car? Is this something you're going to start advocating to people? Buy this car and save some big bucks?
I can actually say that I have recommended somebody buy a Leaf already, and not overwhelmingly, but mostly it's been a positive. I think the battery has depleted a little bit over the 4 years. So, maybe they're getting 60 to 70 miles rather than 70 to 80 miles. But, overall, it's still a great experience. And, they've paid, I think it was like $12,000 for something that originally was much more expensive.
Well, we're going to be seeing obviously these. I think we're going to be seeing more people looking to replace battery packs moving forwards. Obviously, you can do that in the States. We're still waiting on news elsewhere in the world, but it has to happen, doesn't it? It really does. All right. Penultimate story. California now has 2 hybrids for every plug-in car being bought. So for every plug-in car that's bought, 2 hybrids are being bought. Now, 4 years ago, Scott, that was a very different figure. What does this tell us moving forwards?
What was it? Many more hybrids and
Yeah, many more
than
hybrids. Yeah.
yeah. It's a good question. I think the sales of hybrids right now are being driven primarily by their ability to get stickers, and right now the new green stickers were allocated another 30,000, I think, or so, but you won't get them until January 1st. So uh, I think, especially, I'm thinking primarily of the plug-in Prius, which most
Right.
people are buying that are for uh, HOV access. As that
Scratch my head. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think that
to electric motors, so you have an electric air conditioning and heater. All those things really help save and boost up mileage. So it's pretty realistic that you can 45 to 50 on a on any of the Prius lines today.
yeah.
So as the CAFE standards go in place and we have to have higher and higher mileage, the car companies really don't have that much more choice. They continue to lighten the car. Really need to have battery tech in the car.
Last
Right.
year when they were really, really, it had to be fixed.
Right. I mean, there's just not enough momentum, I guess. There's not enough consumers. There's not enough companies with budgets in Washington or elsewhere.
Right.
So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't see it.
Scott, do we think it's going to happen? Because the challenge here is that the current credits, the current incentives are actually better than they are for plug-in cars in California, and in other parts of the state due to the federal tax credits. Now, if these federal tax credits end for hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, suddenly hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, which are already very expensive, are going to get a heck of a lot more expensive.
Yeah, I don't. What is it? Just the Tucson. Any lobbying group would really push hard for it because the dollars are so small it doesn't really matter.
Right. Oh well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, that is it for today's show. If you are listening and you want to know why there wasn't a video today, because we've been relying on recording it locally. That'll joining us today. About you.
Good question.